Hey, good looking. What you got cooking? How about cooking something up with me? Hey, sweet baby, don't you think maybe we could find us a brand new recipe? What you got cooking? How about cooking something up with me? Hey, good looking. What you got cooking?
Hi, my name is Somi. Today I'm going to be introducing you to vegan cooking. If you have no idea what veganism is about, it is a style of eating and a lifestyle that involves excluding all forms of animal products and their byproducts from your diet and from your lifestyle. Today I'm just going to be focusing on the dietary side of things, so I'm going to show you how I cook one of my simple dishes, a tofu stir fry with rice. The dish itself involves about 5 to 6 ingredients. The first one is tofu, which is made from soya beans, and we have some coriander, which we're going to add to the dish as well. Over here we have some spring onions, chilies, shallot, garlic. On this plate we have some munch too, baby corn, and finally some broccoli and black bean sauce. To get the best out of your tofu, you need to squeeze out all the excess water in it. You can either do it by placing a roll of tissue over the tofu and placing heavy cans in it to squeeze out the water in it, or you can use a tofu press. But once you've squeezed out all the water, you need to cut it up into slices or cubes, whatever your preference is, and then just separate it. And then put it in the oven and leave it to bake for around 20 minutes. You should preheat your oven to around 200 degrees centigrade or 220. Between 200 and 220 is fine. It's also best to use parchment paper instead of foil, otherwise you find that your tofu will stick to the foil. So you just carefully arrange your tofu onto the parchment paper. I prefer to cook without salt, but if you want some salt in it, you can feel free to do it at this stage, or otherwise just carefully arrange.
Hey, good looking. What you got cooking? How about cooking something up with me?
And then stick it in the oven. You want to cook this for around 15 minutes to get rid of more water, so you can set your timer on. The next step is to chop your shallot. Finally, I don't really like onions or shallots, so I prefer to chop mine very finely. But if you like onions, you don't need to chop it so fine. Just chop it to your desire, really. So, chopping. Once your onions are all chopped, the next thing is to start making the stir fry. So you need a small splash of water, not too much, just a tiny bit, because you just want to soften the garlic and onions. Now we're going to chop some garlic, finely minced, so that you don't have huge chunks of garlic in your stir fry. But if you like that sort of thing, feel free to chop it into chunky pieces.
Good looking. What you got cooking? Hey, a good looking. What you got cooking?
So the garlic and onions are chopped. Now we're just going to put it into the pot to soften it up. And you can just do that. So I'm going to turn the heat back up now and use a wooden, it doesn't have to be wooden, it's just what I have or what I like to use. The water in here has dried up a bit more, so I need to put just a tiny splash extra to soften the garlic and onions. So this is going to cook for a couple of minutes. Once this is cooked, after about 2 to 3 minutes, we're going to add the vegetables in first. So it's good to add them in the order in which they cook so that you don't end up with soggy vegetables. So I'm going to add the baby corn in first and just stir everything all around. The pan is getting a bit dry now, so I'm just going to add a bit more water. You should do it this way, a little bit at a time, so that your vegetables don't get soggy, like I said, and you don't end up with a soup instead of a stir fry. So just cook this for a minute or two, and then we'll add the mange tout next and the broccoli. So we can actually add this in now. So it's to cook for 2 minutes. We can add the broccoli and the chilies. Just keep stirring. I'm going to add a little bit more water again because the pan has gone dry.
Hey, good looking. What you got cooking?
So right now, we have the onions, the garlic, the baby corn, mange tout, chilies and broccoli. All gently cooking. If you like your vegetables really soft, you can keep them cooking for longer than a few minutes. But I like my vegetables to have a little bit of crunch to them. And also, I tend not to cook them for too long because I want to retain as many of the nutrients in them. If you overcook vegetables, you end up eating, you know, just the vegetables with the actual nutrients in them. So you want to also always make sure that you cook your vegetables for as short as possible. So we're just going to give this a minute or two more just to make sure that the broccoli stalks soften a little bit more and the baby corn is a little bit softer. And we can now check on the tofu to see how far it's got. So the tofu has been baking for about 8 minutes now. It's quite dry, but we can just leave it in for 2 more minutes just to dry out a bit more. And I'm just turning them around so that they cook evenly on both sides. You don't have to do this with your fingers, you can use a fork or a spoon with the first. You can stick this back in and come back to the vegetables. Okay, it's looking all nice and tender. Now, just going to add a couple of teaspoons of the black bean sauce. This one, I like this one because it's oil free, so it fits in with the kind of diet that I like to follow. So we're just going to put in 2 teaspoons. The flavour of this is quite strong, so you want to be careful with how much you use. About 2 teaspoons is fine for what I want. Now we can stir this up a bit more. Check on the tofu again quickly.
Hey, a good looking. What you got cooking?
We're just going to stir in the tofu into the rest of the ingredients in the pan. Stir through properly. And since the tofu is already cooked and there's a little bit of juice left in the pot, you can turn off the heat on the pan, and the heat in there will allow the remaining juices to sip into the tofu, and that's done. So now we're going to just serve this up with some freshly steamed rice. You should always try and use brown rice, but if you don't like brown rice, it's fine, you can still use white rice, but white rice is what we're going to be using today. So we're just going to spoon some rice into the bowl. I'm not actually doing my usual plating style today, I'm just gonna layer on the stir fry. The tofu.
Hey, good looking. What you got cooking? How about cooking?
I usually like to use my fingers for this, by the way, just to make it look nice, but I don't know if I can do spring onions, coriander, and finally just a sprinkling of some black sesame seeds for healthy fats. And so there you have it. This is my rice with tofu stir fry and mixed vegetables. The dish I've shown you today, we've used broccoli, monchtou and baby corn as the main ingredients, but feel free to change the ingredients you use. You don't have to stick to these ones. You can use carrots, you can use aubergines, you can add peas, you could even add chickpeas or beans. Feel free with it. The more ingredients you use, the more nutritious your meal is anyway. Tofu here is very high in protein, so that's a good way to get your protein in if you're worried about that. But if you don't like soy, or you try to avoid it, you can use beans, or you can stick with mushrooms. I have loads of other recipes on my Instagram page, which is @vegan by Somi, or you can look out for my blog where I share loads of other recipes with photos and guidelines of things you can swap around to make your meals more nutritious. If you're interested in eating a vegan diet and you have no idea where to start from, the tip I can give you is to first of all start with including more plants in your diet. So including more vegetables on your plate, wherever possible, eating less food that is refined, and making your diet more wholesome. I know that it can be a little bit overwhelming to go from eating a meat-based diet to a solely plant-based diet. Whatever it is that you feel you can give up easily without it affecting your lifestyle too much, start with that. When you get comfortable with eating more plants, you can then start to eliminate animal products from your diet one at a time. With tofu, you have to ensure that the tofu is calcium set. Not all brands set their tofu in calcium, so that's one thing you have to be wary of when you buy your tofu. Make sure you read the ingredients at the back to ensure that it is actually fortified with tofu. And when it comes to things like B12, if you're worried about getting deficient in B12, ensure that you take a B12 supplement, or you can, shake some nutritional yeast on your food as well.